One truth unites all of us, no matter who we are, where we're from, or what we believe. At some point, life ends. And when people reflect on this deeply, they often feel unease, not because death is painful in itself, but because it's unknown, because it feels like a border we can't see past. But the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus offered a powerful way to understand death, not to ignore it, not to defeat it, but to stop fearing it. Epicurus lived in the 3rd century BCE and spent much of his life thinking and writing about how to live well. He believed philosophy wasn't just abstract theory, it was medicine for the soul. And for him, one of the most important cures philosophy could offer was the end of the fear of death. Now, Epicurus didn't speak of punishment or reward after death. He viewed the soul as part of the body, both made of matter, and when the body dissolves, so does the soul. So, for Epicurus, death is the total end of sensation, of awareness, of experience. But this was not a sad or bleak view. In fact, he thought it was liberating, because he wrote, "Accustom yourself to believe that death is nothing to us. For all good and evil consist in sensation, but death is the deprivation of sensation." Think about that for a moment. If pain requires sensation, and death removes all sensation, then death contains no pain. There's no pain, no fear, no regret, no watching from the outside as the world moves on. There is no you left to feel the absence of life. This is a perspective grounded in naturalism. The idea that the universe functions by natural laws and that we, as conscious beings, are a brief arrangement of matter and energy. But here's something important. Epicurus never claimed this is the only way people should see the world. He didn't insult other views and he didn't need to. He simply offered a rational path, that if you believe consciousness ends at death, then death itself can't be experienced. And what cannot be experienced cannot harm you. He even pointed out something that still resonates today. We don't fear the time before we were born. None of us lie awake at night worried about the year 400 BCE. We weren't there, and it didn't trouble us. So why should the time after our death trouble us more than the time before our birth? This is the core of his teaching. Death is not something you live through. It is not an experience. It is the end of experience. And therefore, it is not something to fear. But that's not where the story ends. Because Epicurus also knew that people need comfort, not just logic. So he built his philosophy around how to live well, not just how to stop fearing death. He taught that happiness is found in simplicity, not in wealth, not in fame, not in endless indulgence, but in peace of mind, friendship, reflection, and freedom from pain. This kind of tranquility, which the Greeks called ataraxia, is the true goal of life. And one of the best ways to reach it is to remove the fears that disturb us, especially the fear of death. Now, you might not fully agree with Epicurus. You might believe, as many do, in an afterlife, a spiritual continuation, or a consciousness beyond the body. And that's okay. His philosophy doesn't demand you abandon those beliefs. It simply invites you to look at death from a different angle and find a reason not to be afraid. Because even if there's something after death and it's good, then there's nothing to fear. And if there's nothing, then there's also nothing to fear. This is what the Roman philosopher Cicero called a win-win view. If death is a journey to another place, we shall meet the great minds of the past. If it is nothingness, we shall be free from all suffering. Either way, fear is unnecessary. And perhaps even more importantly, fear of death takes something very real from us, the present. It distracts us from what we can do, feel, and love right now. We waste time worrying about what we cannot control while ignoring what we can. So what can we do? First, reflect, not with panic, but with peace, on the reality of death. See it as a natural process, not a punishment. It is the closing of the book, not the tearing of the pages. Second, live simply. Epicurus believed that desires lead to suffering when they become endless. Chasing luxury, status, or immortality leads to anxiety. But simple pleasures, a meal, a walk, a conversation, are enough when we are mindful. Third, cultivate deep friendships. Epicurus valued friendship above almost everything, because friends remind us that we're not alone, that life, even though it ends, is filled with connection and joy while it lasts. And finally, remember, life is not meaningful because it lasts forever. It's meaningful because it happens at all, because it's rare, because it's fragile, and because we get to choose how we spend the time we have. So whether you lean toward Epicurus's naturalism or you hold a different belief about what lies beyond, the truth remains. Fear does not add time to our life, but it can steal the life from our time. Epicurus gave us a gift, a way to see death not as a monster hiding at the end of the road, but as a horizon, a point beyond which our awareness simply fades. And in doing so, he returned our focus to where it belongs, not on death, but on life, because we are here. And that means we can choose peace, we can choose joy, we can choose to live without fear, not because we know what comes after, but because we understand what's here, now in our hands. And that is enough.